Is it easier to feel like you're falling behind and ultimately have no value when you're walking by a lake with a friend, or when you just finished scrolling shorts in your room?
This health drink will heal everything.
In one UK study, people were found to be indoors 93% of the time. These are the conditions that produce brain rot. And this is why so much well-intentioned advice on brain rot fails. When we remove apps, set screen limits, and turn off notifications, and these are all fantastic measures in a vacuum, you come to realize the content that we constantly consumed served a purpose. It was masking underlying feelings of disconnection. And if you need more convincing, consider solitary confinement. This punishment represents the final threat to an inmate. It employs only social and environmental disconnection, yet its effects are devastating. A man serving 22 years in prison, 8 months in solitary wrote, "Flesh encased in metal, the stale air, the stiff muscles, pacing 2 steps in either direction to combat stir craziness. With nothing to do, mere minutes warped into what felt like hours. Outdoor yard was the only relief available." Really think about this example. What happens when we're deprived? If this same guy had access to a smartphone, would any of us judge him for using it for 22 hours of the day? Using it for any wakeful moment of the day would make sense. Of his limited time outside, he later wrote, "That provided an opportunity to talk with other people and provided fresh air and sunshine. It helped me make it home alive." We'll be focusing on disconnection from nature, or nature deficit disorder. This is not a real psychiatric disorder, by the way, but I think it's a great term. We'll also talk about how cultivating a relationship with nature will not only provide physical and mental benefits, but also foster real experiences that will make consuming brain rot content just less desirable. And again, this may sound obvious. I want to reiterate the importance of reminders, because when it's not on the forefront, it's hard to remember any of this.
Oxford University Press has just announced its word of the year for 2024, brain rot. It is a term to describe absorbing excess amounts of low-quality online content.
Brain rot.
Brain rot.
Brain rot. Gen Z managed to revive the term brain rot, but it first found itself in Henry David Thoreau's 1854 book, Walden, which is a collection of Thoreau's observations when he lived in a secluded cabin. He wrote, "While England endeavors to cure the potato rot, will not any endeavor to cure the brain rot, which prevails so much more widely and fatally?" In his time, he perceived a mental decline. What did he do? He immersed himself in nature. Modern brain rot is about the overconsumption of short-term content that causes the brain to seemingly deteriorate. Attention spans fall first. Then, important tasks become too boring to even start. It's trivial, repetitive, and numbing. The hallmark of brain rot content is whether you can remember what you consumed yesterday, even 10% of it, or did it form some sort of amalgamation that just you can't even retrieve anymore. Nobody's talking about a scroll here and there. No extreme cutting off everything. No, we're not talking about that. It is characterized as the over-consumption of content. Nature deficit disorder is a term coined by Richard Louv. It describes the physical and mental effects on people with limited outdoor exposure. Results include anxiety and distractibility. The last thing we're going to define is what really constitutes nature. This actually is a controversial question because even the separation between nature and civilization has a lot of connotations. We're not getting into any of that. We're just going to loosely define it as non-urban areas, or even not even your home and office. How we live now compared to history is unimaginably different. I read about an app called Mappiness. The app at random times asks users how they feel, where they are, and who they're with. As the name suggests, the purpose is to map out locations and settings where people feel happiest. About 20,000 users signed up and shared their data. 93% of the time, people were either indoors or in a vehicle. People were least happy at work or while sick. They were most happy when they were with people that they cared about. What I found incredibly interesting was the difference in happiness being in an urban environment compared to a natural environment. That difference in happiness is greater than being alone compared to with a group of friends. And this makes sense. We've always been linked with our environments. Think about the iconic Arab Bedouin and the dunes, or the Maasai in the savannah, or the First Nations of North America in the forests. Before the Industrial Revolution and severe urbanization, people were outside all the time. In 2008, the World Health Organization reported that for the first time in human history, more people lived in urban areas than in rural ones. And like we said before, this lays the groundwork for consuming brain rot content, because we are a confined society, and confined societies rely on technology to pacify their primordial needs. The amount of change we have experienced in the last 200 years is greater than the 1,000 years before. And again, I don't want to romanticize the past. In the past, life was unbelievably, outwardly more difficult. Childhood mortality, life expectancy, disease, famine. There's no denying any of that. But if we put a lion into a zoo, feed it consistent meals, entertain it, give it as many toys and trinkets as it wants, how long will it take for that lion to yearn to be back on the savannah? We would be naive to think that we are fundamentally different than that lion in captive. We ought to learn from them. In nature, everything really does feel a little bit more positive. Thoughts are more easily observed. In the face of a beautiful sunset, an intrusive thought is not that powerful. There was one interesting study that scanned brains of participants before and after a 90-minute nature walk. The scan showed a sizable reduction in blood flow to a region of the brain associated with rumination, anxiety, depression, and sadness. What's great is we know this all intuitively. We just need to be reminded sometimes, and I'm speaking to myself first and foremost. So here's the reminder. We're tackling brain rot by cultivating a relationship with nature that will make us more robust and less likely to rely on these things to pacify us. Paraphrasing what Benjamin Rush, an American psychologist, said in an 1812 treatise about mental patients, it has been remarked that male maniacs in hospitals who assist in cutting wood, making fires, and digging in a garden often recover, while persons whose rank exempts them from performing such services languish away their lives within the walls of the hospital. Staying in the exact same places that exacerbate our brain rot problems will not help us. It's kind of interesting how the dynamic reversed. Now, the wealthy are the ones who have a crazy relationship with nature, going hiking every weekend, going out to their cottage in the summer, and so on. At this point, you may be thinking, this is going to take too much energy to do. The reason I consume brain rot content is because it's the only thing I have enough energy to do at the end of the day. And that concern is 100% valid. We aren't going to change fundamental structures like corporatism, capitalism, and so on. But what if nature was genuinely rejuvenating? What if this connection will make us less tired? Frederick Law Olmsted, a landscape architect and co-designer of Central Park, spoke on the relaxing quality of nature viewing. The enjoyment of scenery employs the mind without fatigue and yet exercises it, tranquilizes it and yet enlivens it, and thus, through the influence of the mind over the body, gives the effect of refreshing rest and reinvigoration to the whole system. When a revered researcher in environmental psychology was asked what leads to brain resting, she responded, soft fascination. If social media consumption and doom scrolling was actually helping us and causing us to rest, we wouldn't be so internally disturbed by it. There is something inside us looking for more. I was born in 1995. Yeah, I didn't have a phone until I was 18. The only reason I got the phone was because I had my first year course with a large number of students where in order to get 10% of your mark, you had to participate every class. And for that, you had to have a cell phone to answer multiple choice questions. That was the only reason I got the cell phone at the time. I didn't even think to need one. And I'm telling you, the older people that are watching this video can attest, it was a better time. We didn't feel tethered. And we didn't have a million people to compare ourselves with, just our internal groups. Now, the phone's practically inseparable with us. This video and future videos are almost essays to myself. I was looking for practical solutions because, like I said in the beginning of the video, everybody was talking about setting screen limits and these sort of band-aid solutions. I find that introducing things that are beneficial and that cause a contrast, where you think to yourself, like, why am I wasting my time? You want to, what I hope it does is it causes breaks in just heedlessness. So you're more aware of what you're actually doing. And that's why these videos are for myself first and foremost. By no means do I have everything figured out. Practical tools. A lot of this video, or most of this video, is actually inspired by the book The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. I felt that this relationship with nature was a missing link in the brain rot conversation. Not some hyper productivity, not grinding this or grinding that. No, just doing things that are fundamental to the human being. And the reason why brain rot content is so insidious is because time just keeps rolling. As we consume, we need more. So the thought that, hey, maybe I should go on a hike or I should watch the sunset may not even come into our mind for months. The solution that's discussed in the book, I believe, is incredibly intelligent and worth implementing. A food pyramid, even if flawed, is used to provide simple dietary recommendations that will help us meet our daily nutrient requirements. The lowest tranche represents what we need to consume the most frequently, while the upper tranche represents what we need to consume, but not too much of it. By that same token, Professor Tim Beatley recommends a nature pyramid. On the base level, he recommends daily interactions with nature. What does this look like? Being outside, looking at the sky while you're taking deep breaths. This base level of interaction will help us de-stress and lighten mental fatigue. At the very least, you're out of the house every single day. The next level of the pyramid is for weekly outings, just a little bit away from the city's hustle and bustle, with the aim being about 1 hour per week. This can be a walk in a green park. This can be a trip to a river or a hike for 1 hour every single week. The next tranche of the pyramid is for monthly excursions. Because it's only once a month, a little bit of distance might not be that bad. This can be a hike in a nice forest. There's so much science telling us how good this is, but I'm actually tired of mentioning studies. This can be a new habit that makes us the people we want to be. Lastly, the pinnacle of the nature pyramid is a yearly multi-day excursion. I don't think you have to do all of these things, but at least having some sort of standard, a standard to look up to, I think is a good thing. We want to cultivate relationships with many things, not only nature. I'm only focusing on nature because we don't have time to talk about all the problems. Like if you're lonely, you're going to be consuming brain rot content way more because we need to meet those needs. If you're disconnected with nature, same thing, but we can only focus on one topic today. So if you're interested in more, if you want more deep dives, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe. If you didn't, let me know why in the comments and tell me what I can improve on. This message was for myself, and I hope other people can benefit as well.